Volume 1, Chapter 2 of The Last Man. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Last Man by Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley. Volume 1, Chapter 2. I lived far from the busy haunts of men, and the rumor of wars or political changes came worn to a mere sound to our mountain abodes. England had been the scene of momentous struggles during my early boyhood. In the year 2073, the last of its kings, the ancient friend of my father, had abdicated in compliance with the gentle force of the remonstrances of his subjects, and a republic was instituted. Large estates were secured to the dethroned monarch and his family, and he received the title of Earl of Windsor, and Windsor Castle, an ancient royalty, with its wide domains, were a part of his allotted wealth. He died soon after, leaving 2 children, a son and a daughter. The ex-queen, a princess of the House of Austria, had long impelled her husband to withstand the necessity of the times. She was haughty and fearless. She cherished a love of power, and a bitter contempt for him who had despoiled himself of a kingdom. For her children's sake alone she consented to remain, shorn of regality, a member of the English Republic. When she became a widow, she turned all her thoughts to the educating of her son Adrian, 2nd Earl of Windsor, so as to accomplish her ambitious ends, and with his mother's milk he imbibed, and was intended to grow up in the steady purpose of reacquiring his lost crown. Adrian was now 15 years of age. He was addicted to study, and imbued beyond his years with learning and talent. Report said that he had already begun to thwart his mother's views, and to entertain republican principles. However this might be, the haughty Countess entrusted none with the secrets of her family tuition. Adrian was bred up in solitude, and kept apart from the natural companions of his age and rank. Some unknown circumstance now induced his mother to send him from under her immediate tutelage, and we heard that he was about to visit Cumberland. 1,000 tales were rife, explanatory of the Countess of Windsor's conduct, none true probably, but each day it became more certain that we should have the noble scion of the late regal house of England among us. There was a large estate with a mansion attached to it, belonging to this family, at Ulswater. A large park was one of its appendages, laid out with great taste, and plentifully stocked with game. I had often made depredations on these preserves, and the neglected state of the property facilitated my incursions. When it was decided that the young Earl of Windsor should visit Cumberland, workmen arrived to put the house and grounds in order for his reception. The apartments were restored to their pristine splendor, and the park, all disrepairs restored, was guarded with unusual care. I was beyond measure disturbed by this intelligence. It roused all my dormant recollections, my suspended sentiments of injury, and gave rise to the new one of revenge. I could no longer attend to my occupations, all my plans and devices were forgotten. I seemed about to begin life anew, and that under no good auspices. The tug of war, I thought, was now to begin. He would come triumphantly to the district to which my parent had fled broken-hearted. He would find the ill-fated offspring, bequeathed with such vain confidence to his royal father, miserable paupers. That he should know of our existence, and treat us, near at hand, with the same contumely which his father had practised in distance and absence, appeared to me the certain consequence of all that had gone before. Thus, then, I should meet this titled stripling, the son of my father's friend. He would be hedged in by servants. Nobles and the sons of nobles were his companions. All England rang with his name, and his coming, like a thunderstorm, was heard from far, while I, unlettered and unfashioned, should, if I came in contact with him, in the judgment of his courtly followers, bear evidence in my very person to the propriety of that ingratitude which had made me the degraded being I appeared. With my mind fully occupied by these ideas, I might be said as if fascinated to haunt the destined abode of the young Earl. I watched the progress of the improvements, and stood by the unlading waggons, as various articles of luxury brought from London were taken forth and conveyed into the mansion. It was part of the ex-queen's plan to surround her son with princely magnificence. I beheld rich carpets and silken hangings, ornaments of gold, richly embossed metals, emblazoned furniture, and all the appendages of high rank arranged, so that nothing but what was regal in splendor should reach the eye of one of royal descent. I looked on these, I turned my gaze to my own mean dress. Whence sprung this difference? Whence but from ingratitude, from falsehood, from a dereliction on the part of the prince's father of all noble sympathy and generous feeling. Doubtless he also, whose blood received a mingling tide from his proud mother, he, the acknowledged focus of the kingdom's wealth and nobility, had been taught to repeat my father's name with disdain, and to scoff at my just claims to protection. I strove to think that all this grandeur was but more glaring infamy, and that, by planting his gold enwoven flag beside my tarnished and tattered banner, he proclaimed not his superiority, but his debasement. Yet I envied him. His stud of beautiful horses, his arms of costly workmanship, the praise that attended him, the adoration, ready servitor, high place and high esteem, I considered them as forcibly wrenched from me, and envied them all with novel and tormenting bitterness. To crown my vexation of spirit, Perdita, the visionary Perdita, seemed to awake to real life with transport, when she told me that the Earl of Windsor was about to arrive. "And this pleases you?" I observed moodily. "Indeed it does, Lionel," she replied. "I quite long to see him. He is the descendant of our kings, the first noble of the land. Everyone admires and loves him, and they say that his rank is his least merit. He is generous, brave, and affable." "You have learnt a pretty lesson, Perdita," said I, "and repeat it so literally, that you forget the while the proofs we have of the Earl's virtues. His generosity to us is manifest in our plenty, his bravery in the protection he affords us, his affability in the notice he takes of us. His rank his least merit, do you say? Why, all his virtues are derived from his station only; because he is rich, he is called generous; because he is powerful, brave; because he is well served, he is affable. Let them call him so. Let all England believe him to be thus. We know him. He is our enemy, our penurious, dastardly, arrogant enemy. If he were gifted with one particle of the virtues you call his, he would do justly by us, if it were only to shew that if he must strike, it should not be a fallen foe. His father injured my father. His father, unassailable on his throne, dared despise him who only stooped beneath himself, when he deigned to associate with the royal ingrate. We, descendants from the one and the other, must be enemies also. He shall find that I can feel my injuries, and he shall learn to dread my revenge." A few days after he arrived. Every inhabitant of the most miserable cottage went to swell the stream of population that poured forth to meet him. Even Perdita, in spite of my late philippic, crept near the highway, to behold this idol of all hearts. I, driven half mad, as I met party after party of the country people in their holiday best, descending the hills, escaped to their cloud-veiled summits, and looking on the sterile rocks about me, exclaimed, "They do not cry, 'Long live the Earl!'" Nor, when night came, accompanied by drizzling rain and cold, would I return home, for I knew that each cottage rang with the praises of Adrian. As I felt my limbs grow numb and chill, my pain served as food for my insane aversion. Nay, I almost triumphed in it, since it seemed to afford me reason and excuse for my hatred of my unheeding adversary. All was attributed to him, for I confounded so entirely the idea of father and son, that I forgot that the latter might be wholly unconscious of his parents' neglect of us. And as I struck my aching head with my hand, I cried, "He shall hear of this! I will be revenged! I will not suffer like a spaniel! He shall know, beggar and friendless as I am, that I will not tamely submit to injury!" Each day, each hour added to these exaggerated wrongs. His praises were so much adder's stings infixed in my vulnerable breast. If I saw him at a distance, riding a beautiful horse, my blood boiled with rage, the air seemed poisoned by his presence, and my very native English was changed to a vile jargon, since every phrase I heard was coupled with his name and honour. I panted to relieve this painful heart-burning by some misdeed that should rouse him to a sense of my antipathy. It was the height of his offending, that he should occasion in me such intolerable sensations, and not deign himself to afford any demonstration that he was aware that I even lived to feel them. It soon became known that Adrian took great delight in his park and preserves. He never sported, but spent hours in watching the tribes of lovely and almost tame animals with which it was stocked, and ordered that greater care should be taken of them than ever. Here was an opening for my plans of offence, and I made use of it with all the brute impetuosity I derived from my active mode of life. I proposed the enterprise of poaching on his domain to my few remaining comrades, who were the most determined and lawless of the crew, but they all shrunk from the peril, so I was left to achieve my revenge myself. At first my exploits were unperceived. I increased in daring.